Ubisoft is one of those companies which have found a way to sell us mostly the same products in a slightly different package again and again. Far Cry is one of those franchises, and while it has been evolving slowly, it feels like most recent games are above all more of the same. Since Far Cry 3, however, the story was being pushed to the forefront of the game. While we have been given these large open worlds to play within, Ubisoft have tried to create a compelling story. This has mostly been hit and miss, but it turns out that mediocre stories can make exciting gameplay by simply getting one thing right: the main antagonist. We all remember Voss and his crazy yet appealing personality. He was such a success, in fact, that he started a form of memes and even a short live-action web series. If you haven't watched it, I do recommend it. It's kind of entertaining. Voss was a hit, and the guys at Ubisoft knew that this had to continue with the next games. With Far Cry 4, we saw Pagan Min, who many people found to be rather boring, but I actually liked him quite a bit. Still, it shows that he was not nearly as appealing as Voss, since the opinions here were divided. Far Cry Primal felt more like an experiment, and while I did enjoy it, it didn't present any charismatic main antagonists at all. Then came 5, and we were bombarded by advertisements about a cult and its leader, the Father. Since I didn't want to spoil the story for myself, I was blissfully ignorant when I started playing. My initial expectations were that the Father would actually be a charlatan who was not actually a believer in God, but was rather using religion in order to establish a seat of power. This seemed cliché, boring, but still, luckily I was wrong. This is not a spoiler because it becomes clear with the first cinematic of the game. Even before you start playing properly, you will see his devotion to his religion. That first sign became the spark I needed in order to hope for a good story. The character was interesting again, and his motivations were genuine. A man who believes he has received a divine message can make for a very interesting villain. We are never really told what his plans are from the start. It was clear that there is more to it than wealth, women, and power. Once you actually start playing, you will come to realize that the map is divided in regions, each being the domain of an apostle appointed by the Father himself. Similarly to how it was in Wildlands, you cause trouble in a region until the main target appears, and then you get a special mission which will allow you to dispose of him or her and move on to the next one. This is where one of my main complaints comes from. The game tracks how much trouble you cause within a region, and it gives you a few confrontations with the apostle in charge, and this happens several times during the mission. So you would play some, gain some points, suddenly something will happen and you get to confront the apostle, but you cannot kill him at first. And after several confrontations, the final one will appear where you can actually do something. However, this is done in a very stupid way. Normally, you would think that the game would offer you some kind of a story mission where you would go and trigger the event, but the developers chose that instead of doing this, they will instead simply teleport you to where you want to be and just start a mission without your consent. Since this would kill any immersion if they just decided to ask you to do some stupid things and mask this mission in some way, a group of highly trained goons appear out of nowhere with tranquilizing darts, and you simply hear a song or something like that will happen. So essentially, instead of just giving you a marker on the map, as you play, you get a message that suddenly somebody's hunting you and you suddenly pass out. No matter what you do, no matter where you are, even if there's no one around you, the game wants you to start that other mission and it needs you to go to a specific location. So it's just gonna make you pass out and teleport you there, and this happens every time with all of the apostles without exception, and it's just absolutely idiotic. This is super stupid for several reasons. Let's take the first way: tranquilizing darts. Now there are several things that are employed to cause this. There's tranquilizing darts, there's a song which will induce hallucination or make you pass out, and there's drugs. And I gotta say, the drugs are probably the best ones, but they also don't really work that well. But let's go to the tranquilizing darts. That would not be so bad if the game gave you a fair chance. After all, the goons do really appear and begin shooting at you if you're in the open or somewhere where it could attack you. The problem is that this is essentially a scripted event. It's going to happen and nothing will stop it. You can be mid-air, 100 meters above the goons, okay? So they're down there with tranquilizing darts and you're flying super high in the sky, in a helicopter on top of everything, or simply in a closed room where there is nobody else. Even within a camp full of your own soldiers, nothing works. As soon as the goons have arrived, your character suddenly acts like he or she has been hit by a tranquilizing dart. It feels very cheap and it's very annoying. This applies to all of the 3 methods I have mentioned. I have described them all and they're all equally stupid. Each apostle has their own way of getting you easily, yet they seem to only use it 3 times, and there is always a stupid way for you to escape. So this is even not really a good mechanic in general, because it just, if they could get to you so easily, and they do it, like I said, first you have several smaller confrontations with them, For example, at the beginning they will make you pass out somehow, they will abduct you, but you escape. Then they do the same one more time later in the story, and then you escape again, and the third time you actually get a chance to kill the apostle. And this happens literally for all apostles, so the whole schematic repeating itself for each region that you need to kill the apostle within. The escapes are pure deus ex machina. For those of you who don't know what this term means, it's when the story writer places the protagonist against impossible odds and then invents something that is almost a miracle, which helps the protagonist save themselves or be saved by others. This is a tool used sparingly because it feels cheap and is used way too often in this particular game, which then kills the suspense. Since you know that next time something happens, the character will not really be in any danger, since a miracle is waiting to happen any second. This is exactly how the game goes as well. Here it happens many times over in the course of the story. Constantly, they catch you, you find some way to escape. They catch you, someone liberates you. This happens every time, multiple times in any of the different regions, so it never leaves any suspense for you. Of course, we all know our protagonist is not just gonna get killed off, unless in some games that happens, but even then there's some kind of way for you to be revived or something else. But it feels too cheap and it's unoriginal at this point. It's a clear sign of poor storytelling, and sadly it is not the only problem with this game's story. I'm aware of the fact that it is not easy to tell a good story when giving the player so much freedom, but there are many games that still pull it off. Think of The Witcher 3, for example. A lot of characters are introduced and most of them are over the top, which is not a bad thing, since it fits the crazy quests they offer you. When interacting with these characters, you will quickly realize that your protagonist is mute. Now, I'm not talking about The Witcher anymore, I'm talking about Far Cry again. Even your character in Far Cry Primal was talking, and he was not even speaking a real language, but one that was especially crafted for the game. They invented a language so that your character can still talk. In this particular game, that is not the case. Your character just refuses to speak and that's it. Stripping the protagonist of a voice also strips them of any character. You're reduced to a level of a grunt who just follows anyone's orders. This harms the story additionally and destroys the immersion. You are a nobody, and that's why people will also refer to you as Rookie or Rook, which again is short for rookie. You have no name, no voice, and no character. This kills the whole story for me. You cannot have a good story without a good protagonist and an interesting antagonist. At first I thought that this was done because of the multiplayer, but that makes no sense. Ghost Recon Wildlands was also available in co-op multiplayer, and your characters were voiced. Even the bots were voiced and had little conversations which you would listen to, or they would even talk to your character and then your character would respond, and that was really cool. In Far Cry 5, each of the apostles and the Father himself will try to talk to you, to convert you to their cause, to make you see how everything they do makes sense. And that would be appealing if I didn't know that they are literally talking to a character who shows no emotions and does not respond. It kills the whole vibe. I won't hide it, I'm very unhappy with this. It feels like the game's story could have been so much more, and at some point people just said fuck it and then released a game that was simply not ready yet. Sadly, the cracks are not just within the story. The game is riddled with bugs. There are sound bugs, gameplay bugs, and the worst of all, buggy quests. It's been a few months since the game came out, yet there are still many side quests which simply don't work. Quest items are not there, scripts fail to load, etc. At some point we had 4 side quests which could not be completed because of bugs. Not to mention the bugs killed me several times. Yes, they actually killed my character. Something just magically happens, you will see it in the video. I fly up in the sky, fall down, I'm just dead. Then there are some strange restrictions that serve to only annoy the players. For example, if you play in co-op, only the host progresses. This means that the second player does not unlock any new weapons, vehicles, or any of the skins that require some kind of progression before they can be unlocked with a perk point. Again, Wildlands did this better. Another thing I can think of was that some skills are not usable when playing in co-op, but the game does not tell you that. For example, there's a very expensive talent you can buy, which enables you to have 2 specialists instead of just 1. Specialists are companions you can recruit, such as a dog, a bear, a plane pilot, and others. The game never tells you that you cannot use a second specialist until you have actually purchased the skill. Then it lets you know that you have wasted your point. And how does it let you know that? Well, you just can't do it. It says in co-op you can only have 1 specialist. But this message only appears after you have invested your skill points into the skill, and there's no way to revert them. At least I haven't found one yet. Another similar thing is the timer after dying. You have to wait before you can respawn. This makes absolutely no sense here. It makes some sense during combat because you want to make it a bit harder for the players, but it makes absolutely no sense when you're just roaming and you die by falling off a cliff, for example. The players cannot separate either. If you go too far from each other, the game will forcefully teleport one to the other. You don't get a choice in who gets teleported to whom. room, but the game would prioritize things like being the host or being in a vehicle. It's still stupid and feels like an unnecessary restriction. The thing about Far Cry 5 is that while the story is essentially a disaster, the actual gameplay is quite fun. It's really more of the same, but with the added craziness of hillbilly missions, shovel launchers, and religious enemies. The stealth works quite well as well, but I did find it very strange that there is no actual way to go prone. You can only crouch. It mostly enraged my wife, who likes to play as a sniper while going for, just hiding places and proning so that she can provide cover while I go for the close combat. There are not that many weapons in the game, but the gameplay is still satisfying and well done. The same can be said about the vehicles. Most of them feel just right and offer many fun ways of traveling around the map. The game actually features a wingsuit, which makes things even more exciting. The only problem is that there is no actual balance in terms of weapons and vehicles. You will find yourself preferring the silenced 50 caliber sniper over any other long-ranged weapon. The same goes for the helicopters, the number one way of traveling and killing enemies. When it comes to the short-range options, things get a bit more interesting and there's a bit more of a choice, but overall it felt like there could have been more weapons and attachments, especially attachments. Speaking of customizations, you can also change the way your character looks, but yet again the selection felt a bit limited to me. There is the possibility for people to buy in-game currency with real money, but I honestly can't see why anyone would want to do that if the game offers such a meager selection of weapons, vehicles, and outfits to begin with. Something that I had not seen in a Far Cry game yet was the fishing. I did enjoy it somewhat, although it felt like it was not working quite right on the PC and at times felt very random. Small fishes would fight me for a very long time while huge ones would be easy to catch. The fishes also never seem to tire out. You can go for a very long time if you're unlucky and simply bad enough at the game, and you will not be able to pull out that fish because it just changes direction and forces you to keep playing this minigame over and over or just for a very long time. And that's just strange in a fishing game. And I'm not saying that this is a fishing game, but that is a simple mechanic existing in every fishing game, and they could have implemented it here, where the fishes just get more tired and easier if you hold them on the line for long enough. Naturally, you can once again hunt animals, but this time it's purely for monetary gains. You will not craft any pouches for ammo or medkits anymore. The stuff costs perk points. I have mixed feelings about that. Some part of me enjoyed the progression of crafting, but in all fairness, it was essentially grinding, but it is objectively better that it is gone now if you compare it to the past. Still, I did enjoy it somewhat. The map itself is gorgeous, but felt like there were not enough animals. You would see quite a few farm animals and other more wild ones when on the road, but once you go into the forests, you find that there aren't enough there. At least that's how it felt to me and my wife. The environments are quite similar, and well, due to the fact that the area is not nearly as big as the one in Wildlands, it is still fun to explore, but just like I said, there's not that much diversity in it. I remember in Wildlands you would go to the salt flats, you'd go to a winter area, a tropical area. It felt like it's a whole world to explore, but I do understand why they couldn't do that here because it'd just be crazy. I'm just mentioning it still. It will feel mostly identical no matter in which area you are. So after having finished it, there's a lot that you can still do in arcade mode. It's basically a bunch of custom maps, most of which are made by other players. I've tried a few, and while they were interesting, just wasn't enough to keep me entertained enough, so I really didn't stay and play on. Far Cry 5 is a mixed bag, and it seems to be making huge steps backward in some directions. If you are like me and you want a good story, you will not find it here. Only interesting ideas, which were sadly wasted. The game also has a lot of bugs in every aspect of its gameplay. Nothing game breaking, but it will still make you angry by killing you randomly, making it impossible to pick up weapons, and making it so a quest cannot be completed even though you did everything that needed to be done. Luckily, no main quests here, just side quests. There will also be the occasional lag when playing, even if the host is sitting right next to you. Sometimes enemies will teleport, etc. With that being said, the game is still fun to play and can be a blast in co-op multiplayer. You can go for stealth as well as for a loud approach, and will find both very entertaining. If I had played this game on my own, I would have not enjoyed it. In co-op, I still had fun even though there are so many problems. I'd still recommend to all the people who have not played this game yet to wait a bit. The price will drop further, and there's a good chance that many of the bugs will be fixed. Just be sure to have a friend who wants to tag along, but be warned that only the host will unlock progression-based rewards. The other player will remain a noob forever. That explains why everyone was referring to me as a rookie the whole time. I guess I was the noob. My wife was actually progressing through the story. Well, this has been my review of Far Cry 5. You've heard my thoughts of the game. Now it's only fair you tell me yours. I love the contact with my viewers, so we all share the passion of playing games, and as with everything else, our tastes are different. Don't be shy and let me know what you thought of the game and of course of my review. I hope it's been informative and entertaining, and want to thank you for watching.